Hi, in this video I'm going to tell you about a new idea that the DSA have had. That's the Driving Standards Agency who do all the driving tests in the UK. What they're thinking of doing is publishing a driving instructor's pass rate so that you'll be able to go onto a website and type in their name or school name and you'll be able to look up how many passes they've had. Now it sounds a good idea, doesn't it? No, it's not. Let me tell you why. There are two massive reasons why this is going to be disastrous for learners more than it's going to be for instructors. First of all, it means that no instructor is ever going to want to take a pupil for a driving test because we're going to be so afraid of pupils failing, we simply can't afford to have pupils fail. So your lessons are going to go on for months and months and months, and you're going to have to spend loads more on lessons because we're never going to want to take anyone for a test unless they're bulletproof. Now you might say, well, that's the idea, that's a good thing because you won't be wasting people's time. The problem is that I would say 9 out of 10 driving tests have failed because pupils get scared. It's nothing to do with not being able to drive, they simply get nervous on the day and they mess up. I've had pupils go for a test who are so scared they've actually been sick outside the test centre, and it is a horrific experience. It's awful to go on a driving test. So at the moment what we can do is say to pupils, okay, look, maybe you're not going to pass, but that doesn't matter because you can always do it again. Let's go on a test, see how you do, get a feel for it, then you can do it again. That's a great way of doing it. You could say it's being careless, but it's not, because it helps pupils. It also helps me because I can sit back and say, oh look, that examiner thought your steering wasn't very good, and I can look at it again and say, oh, actually yeah, there is something we can improve on that. So it's a good way of getting a second opinion. That's not going to happen anymore if instructors' pass rates are published because we're never going to want to take anyone on a driving test. And another problem that it's going to cause is that it's going to create what we call toxic pupils. Now a toxic pupil is somebody that no one wants to take on because they're that bad. Can you imagine what it's going to be like if you phone up a driving school or send them an email and you say, I've had 3 tests and I've failed them, can you help? That school's not going to want to touch you. As a learner, you're going to be toxic. It's like, no way, that person's failed 3 tests, I'm not going to take them, I'm not going to have my pass rate messed up by people like that. And it's not fair, is it? That's one of the big problems it's going to cause. The other problem with that is it's going to make all the lessons test orientated. So whereas at the moment it's all about teaching people to drive, instructors are going to be focusing purely on the driving test. So forget about teaching them to drive. We're going to be looking right at the test, right, purely the test. What do we do for the test? How can we get them through the test? Learning to drive safely will go out the window. Forget about things that I do now, like taking pupils into the city centre. If that doesn't need to be done, it won't be done. Forget about the things I do, like where I bring in elements of advanced driving and I teach people that before the pass. Forget that, not going to have time. It's going to be purely focused on the test itself. You'll get through a test and then you'll probably go and crash within 6 months because you won't have learned to drive. It's going to be purely focused on pass figures, pass rates. It's like when you go into hospital and they put people on beds in the alleyways, in the corridors, just because they're trying to get them out of the waiting room so they're not classed as a waiting patient. It's just stupid. But the worst problem of all is that there's a big problem in this industry called cherry picking. Now, cherry pickers are instructors who only take on the best pupils. So what they'll do is they'll give people 3 or 4 lessons cheap. You've probably seen all these deals like 5 lessons for £50. If they're no good, they'll just dump them. They'll think, bloody hell, I ain't teaching them, they're awful, and they'll just get rid of them. They'll only teach the best pupils. Well, say teach, they're not teaching them because all they're doing is to sit back and to take on the pupils that have had loads of lessons at other schools. We've done all the hard work, we've taught them, then they go to another school, pass, and that instructor takes all the credit. Think of it like this. I had a pupil only a few years back who was absolutely terrible. Now, if you're watching this, you might be thinking, oh, that was me, if you're an old pupil of mine. It probably wasn't you, because I've had several people like this. But the one I've got in mind did a total of 72 hours of lessons with me. He had 7 driving tests, and he was absolutely terrible. And he admitted himself, he said, I'm not very good, am I? And I said, you're not the best pupil, but I'm going to stick with you, I'm going to get you through. Yeah, and this is people that I had who passed his test on his 7th go. I remember him saying to me, I want to say thanks to you because I've been to several of the schools before you and they all just dumped me. He said I had 3 or 4 lessons and they all just didn't turn up and they just got rid of me. And he said I knew I wasn't very good and I knew they were dumping me because I wasn't very good. And he said, I just want to say thanks for putting up with me and teaching me. So I want to ask you a question now to finish the video. Who's the better instructor? But let me know in the comments section below. Is it the instructor who cherry picks pupils and only takes the best pupils for tests and dumps the ones that you can't teach? Or is it the instructor who might have a pass rate of 1 in 20, but that's because they have bad pupils and they stick with them and they help them and they eventually pass? So who's the better instructor? The one with 10 passes out of 10 or the one with maybe 2 passes out of 10? It's up to you.